All right, welcome to One Foot in the Grave podcast. I'm Dan.
I'm Jake.
Hi, weirdos.
Yeah, this of course is the true crime, supernatural comedy podcast, where we talk slowly. and it's that podcast that you probably want to listen to at 1.5 speed. We don't blame you. It's not
that podcast that you didn't mean to click on.
You meant to click on One Foot in the Rave to find out what was happening in Ibiza. But here we are. Yeah, we'll give you some beats. We'll give you some Danny rambling beats. Just to fulfill that, but you might as well listen. Buckle up. It's going to get weird.
Buckle up. Speaking of beats, I was loudly singing Hamilton before I realized that Jake was on.
It was.
I don't know how long you were there for because I have to switch between what I can hear.
Solid 10 minutes. I didn't realize.
Fuck off.
No, I'm serious. I didn't realize. Now, is it just that you have the album? I don't know how you. Do you have a karaoke version of the album? Because there was the music.
One. Yeah, there's an instrumental one.
So it was the music and just your voice.
Yeah,
and it's like a medley.
To know that I know all the words. Yeah.
Now, if you went to the musical Hamilton, sorry, am I too loud? Maybe I'm too loud.
No.
Okay.
No, you're fine.
If I went to the music Hamilton, is it just music the whole way through, or is it like a standard musical where
rapping. No, all rapping all
the time? How would you spell Hamilton in rap?
ATT.
Yeah, because there's no S's to turn into dollar signs. But
it's the ALEX
HAML HAMLTON.
We are meant to be a
HAMLTN.
colony that runs independently. Meanwhile, Britain keeps shitting on us. I definitely don't have the rights to that. I'll have to cut that out.
No. Man, what was I? Oh shit! I always lose my train of thought. I think I might have early Alzheimer's.
Yeah. Could you imagine of all the things to
metal table today?
Of all the things to get, I mean, could you just imagine forgetting everything? God, a dream come true.
It's like it never happened. Sure, it's embarrassing to shit your pants, but if you don't remember it 2 minutes later, it's really somebody else's problem.
Yeah.
I don't mind burdening my loved ones. As long as I'm happy.
Yeah. I mean...
Plus, early on, it's a horrendous disease, and I feel terrible for the families of Alzheimer's people. But if I had it, at some point, what's funny is I do find my memory is starting to fail me a bit. And I'm having to do a lot of word searching and stuff. But one of the advantages of my memory failing me is that I can go back and reread Stephen King books, and it's like, fuck, I don't remember this. This is great. Because I read them when I was a teenager.
So I do basically, as you know now, I run, I'm not going to say what my job is, but I run 2 emergency centers.
Mom and Dad are talking in the background. Hold on 1 second. I'm just going to mute this for 1 second.
No one cares. No one really cares. Are you telling them to shut up? Are you telling our ailing parents?
I'm just
father with cancer,
thanks, Mom.
Mother with cold.
Yeah.
Guys,
mother,
shut the fuck up! I'm trying to do a fucking podcast.
Father with pancreatic cancer. Mother suffering from postnasal drip.
She's got postnasal depression.
That's a combined diagnosis of postnasal drip and depression. Postnasal depression. Oh God. We had Dad had his chemo yesterday. Yeah, and I came up. We're in Shediac right now. He might do a murder story for us.
That'd be good
because we're all here. And
yeah.
But I came up yesterday just to make sure he was doing okay, and it's it's Friday here, so and he wanted to pick up his old 1987 Jaguar Vanden class that's been in storage. Yeah. How many years? 20?
A decade.
At least a decade.
Oh no! I was gonna say I took it to my prom, but
that prom was half your life ago.
That was in 2001. I graduated.
Yeah.
So I think that was
that was probably the last time it worked.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we went, and he said, "Oh no, they got it started. It's all good." We went. It had not been started. It was locked. The brakes were seized on, and we kind of got underneath the car. Dad, post chemotherapy, so I got underneath the car and like finagled with stuff. And then Uncle Stephen, whose foot is turning black, came out. Yeah. It's rotting off. He came out. He like hobbled out to help us, and Dad can't hear him, and because Dad's deaf, and Stephen couldn't hear either of us because he's deaf. And it was like a comedy of errors. It was like the Three Stooges, but a really depressing version. Like I'm probably on the verge of a coronary, so I'm overweight, sweating, my face is beet red, and I'm underneath this car, banging around on it. And then as I'm under there, Dad turns on the car and starts hitting the gas with the car in drive with me underneath.
Oh my gosh.
Because he doesn't know I'm down there because he can't hear.
It should be mentioned that it's a V12. It's not like it's not like a Chevette.
No, it has the engine from a Sherman tank from World War II. But anyway, so eventually we got the brakes on seized. And I thought, well, roll it out and we'll get a tow truck. And he was like, okay, well, I'm going to drive it home. First of all, it's covered in an inch of dust. Like it's
an inch of dust and raccoon and rat shit.
There's shit in it. There's there's squirrel carcasses and there's chewed up blanket and stuff in the trunk. Anyway, nice. So he starts driving it home, and I'm driving behind him, and it was pretty wobbly on the road, I would say. And at one point, this big plume of black smoke came out, and I'm not sure where it came from, but it smelled like burning asbestos. It's the only. It was this, it filled my car, and then a couple minutes later, a giant piece of metal, a triangular piece of metal, flew out from under his car and went sailing over the car I was in, bouncing off the road. And after that, he had no brakes, so he had to. He had to drive the car into ditches on the way home and like stop it like you stop when you're skiing. It had to turn sideways back and forth. And he's post chemotherapy on a bajillion drugs. The car, of course, in the interest of safety, had its safety inspected and registered and everything beforehand. Nope. Didn't do that. No safety features at all. At first he was able to use the emergency brake, but then the pad for that finally wore off,
he said that eventually failed too.
So he just had to keep driving until he could, we couldn't turn into the garage because he was going too fast. So he had to go through a T-junction, through a stop sign, through a bunch of ditches, around a bunch of driveways and stuff until
it was like the reverse of the Apollo 13 mission, where you had to slow yourself down by going in roundabouts.
That's exactly it. We didn't speed. We didn't do a moon sling to speed ourselves up.
Yeah.
We did the roundabouts to slow down. Finally, he stopped it by putting it in reverse while it was going, and then just got out. And he said, "Well, that's as close as I've ever come to shitting my pants."
And he's been close.
It was like a scene from one of those madcap kids movies from the 80s, like Roll Over Beethoven. Dad has no brakes, and then all of a sudden you hear the saxophone in the band, like following Dad as he drives like a drunk.
Yeah, like.
Yeah.
Fuck, we're stupid.
Yeah, well, it's that kind of slapstick comedy for some reason still appeals to me. Same with in the winter when people slip on the ice and fall down and drop all their stuff. I feel bad for them because I've hurt myself doing it a million times. But in fairness,
have you seen the YouTube videos?
Well, there are millions of videos.
But this dad is waiting outside the school to pick up his children, and there's like this really icy bit of black ice that has snow over it.
Yeah,
he's just watching these kids, like children, eat it.
Oh no!
And just cacking himself. I'll see if I can find it. I'll put the link in the description. It's worth a laugh.
I know I have a weird laugh, but like Professor Frink from The Simpsons. I was on as you know, I have a YouTube channel that it's a guitar demo channel, and it's it's just a hobby. I haven't put anything on it for over a year, but I I recently ran into a YouTube bully on my channel, who
the faceless bully,
the faceless YouTube bully with an account, unfortunately, that I'm unable to track. But what was funny about it was that so his first comment, I compared two sets of guitar pickups, and one set is like kind of like a low key guitar pickup, and the other set is a little more high output, so they're a little louder. Yeah. And when you're comparing stuff, because people are cross shopping, right? They do you put on a ton of distortion and effects, or do you just play it like, clean so they can actually hear the difference? You play clean, right? Yeah. So I played it clean. So he wrote, so it's the Lawlers are the quiet ones and the 57 Classics are the loud ones. He wrote, the 57 Classics are much better here, but are not a good fit for a low testosterone individual like this guy. And then I wrote back, ouch, my uterus. And I thought that would be that. But then he wrote back and he said, get a grip. You don't have a uterus. You just do low T stuff like prefer Lawlers and make cocktails for your wife's boyfriend. No big mysteries here. Pretty good insult. But then I wrote back, your mother didn't think there were any problems with my testosterone levels. Coincidentally, she asked me to find out if you were finished wearing her underpants, as tomorrow is Laundry Saturday. You'd think it would end there, but he wrote back, said, there, little buddy, calm down. So now you are concerned about other men's underwear. It's to be expected, I guess. I think it's even too late for TRT, I think testosterone replacement therapy. In this case, I mean, at least you still have your Lawlers, right? And then I wrote back, you seem to have an unhealthy obsession with my testes, little fella. It's been my experience that we tend to obsess over what we can't have. There's a great product out there for guys like you called Nudicles. They feel just like the real thing. Whether you wish you had some of your own or you just want to know what it feels like to fondle a pair, they'll do the trick. Check them out. So Nudicles are fake testicles for dogs, but I figured I could kind of slide it in there, because it's a YouTube comment section. And then he wrote back a diatribe about my son and how my son is actually somebody else's son, and my son looks like a fag. Stuff, because Jack is in some of the videos. And so then I had to basically report him for harassment. But anyway. And I was going to write back. I was going to call him a pederast. And then I was like, you know what? I should stop this because this guy is clearly fucked up in the head. It's guitar pickups, buddy. Take it easy. But that's the world our kids are going to grow up in. Exactly. I'm also just finishing American Vandal Season 2. Which, if you haven't seen, oh my God, it's so funny. Have you seen the first one?
No.
It's like a true crime show, but it's a parody, and it's basically the first season is a parody of Making of a Murderer, where a guy gets falsely accused of drawing dicks on all the teachers' cars in the teachers' parking lot of his high school, they go into this.
I watched the first 10 minutes. I couldn't keep going.
It got very real. You got very good. I mean, the second season is a laxative attack. For a low-testosterone
individual like yourself, I can see that it would be very
the
funny.
Appeal. Yeah.
But someone like me who sings karaoke style to Hamilton,
but has balls the size of baby heads.
Well, just one. Do you think I should get that checked out?
It's probably fine.
Yeah, I call it.
Do you really want to go through the treatment?
Testicle.
Yeah.
No. Yeah,
do you remember? No. Now, of course, you remember, but when I think it was maybe the first time you fingered a girl.
Oh, yeah.
You thought you had an STD on your hands. And you went to the doctor and asked if you could get an STD without the S.
Without the S. Yeah. Yeah, those were the days. And
then there was the extra testicle, E.T.
No, that was so. that has a different, like, that was humiliating as a kid because I had to go to a urologist and I was like a child and mum didn't come into the room with me, which I think now would be illegal. And he essentially candled my testicle. He put a flashlight up to my ball sack and looked through the skin like he's looking for a fucking chicken embryo. He's like, nope, you're all good. And then when Aaron found out...
Mom, why did you take me to the veterinarian?
Looks like an egg to me. Then when I was at university with Aaron, like we were dating, and she was like, "What's this?" When she was feeling my balls, and because apparently you've got a lot more sensation with your tongue than with your fingers.
Oh, so, yeah, right, yeah, sure.
Like, oh, what's
What? I can't hear you.
So I went to. She made me go to the doctor, and they got an ultrasound for it.
Yeah.
And I went in to the ultrasound place, which is all private here. So I went in and I was like, "Hi, I'm Dan. I'm here to get my ultrasound." They're like, "Oh, we don't have an appointment for you." I said, "Let's go. Bye." And Aaron was like, "No, look it up." So then they couldn't find it. So they called the doctor and they said my full name. And then they said, "Ultrasound for the scrotum." Scrotum.
In the waiting room.
In the waiting room. All the people. Scrotum. Ultrasound. Like, oh, for fuck's sake. So then I had to wait, and all these people are looking at me. And I go in, and the ultrasonographer is, like, beautiful. And he had such warm hands. And she goes to get the gel out of the warmer, and she goes, "Oh, all out." So I had to reflect my dick up onto my belly button, and put a towel over it, and just have my balls hanging out.
Big part of our job.
She goes, and she goes up to a top cupboard to get the another bottle of this stuff, and it's sitting right next to the air conditioning duct. And she gets it out, and I could feel my cremaster muscle just
sucking the ball back up.
Sucking, like I was like, "Oh, you're gonna have to go." It's up here near my Adam's apple now. Turns out I just had a goiter.
Low-hanging goiter. Oh God! When I was
fucking testicle.
Part of my job, I have to wear lead, right? A lead apron and a lead because we work with radiation, and so when I did my fellowship, I was out in Vancouver, and of course they're not going to buy you lead, and to buy your own is like $3,000, but they have extras that you can wear. But I'm not morbidly obese, but I'm a heavy guy. I think the fattest person who's ever been in the Vancouver hospital because they all fucking bicycle to work and then they, go for a jog at lunch and blah, blah, blah. So, so the only lead they had was the obesity lead, like for the person who's like, 10 times fatter than me.
Yeah. Right.
And so it almost wrapped around me twice and I wore it for the whole year. But as I was wearing it, because it's so much weight you wear one around your waist and one on your back.
Yeah.
The one around my waist, I had to wear it so tight so it wouldn't fall off that I think I must have squeezed a vein. Sorry. Oh. There's the belch of the day. I think I must have squeezed the venous return like off from my inguinal canal. And so I developed this like, a varicocele, like a varicose vein in my scrotum. Yeah. Could have been that. Could have been the excessive drinking and eating that I do. But anyway, so one Saturday morning I was on call and I was like, there's nobody there. I got to make sure this isn't a tumor because it felt like a giant mass in my ball sack, right? So I went in and familiar. And in the I snuck into an ultrasound suite, turned on the machine, warmed it up, and then ultrasounded my own balls, right? And
ow, shit, sorry. Yeah.
Anyway, as I was doing that, I took some, I didn't save any pictures, obviously. I didn't put a name on the thing or whatever.
Yeah.
And oh, thank God, it's just a varicocele or whatever. Put the thing away, came out, and outside the ultrasound room which I guess I never thought of, is this giant bank of monitors that shows live ultrasound feeds from all the ultrasound rooms. Sitting there is this beautiful Asian radiologist who, like, I'm a married man and I don't have wandering eyes, but I can appreciate somebody who is absolutely gorgeous, and she's also super nice. And I'd worked with her for the first 6 months. This was 6 months in. And she's sitting there looking at the monitor. My balls were just on. And she says to me, you have to put your patient's name in because you can't save images with no name in it. And I looked at her and said, no patient. There's no patient in there. I just saw and then she kind of cocked her head and I just said, I'll see you later.
Gotta go.
Well, I gotta head out. So she came in early. Fuck. You can't win. Anyway, true crime. No. Let's bite into this week's paranormal true crime. You've got one. Is yours paranormal or true crime? You're usually
mine's myth busted. For ew. I'm going to do the story of Wolf Creek. So, because it's not at all what I thought it would be.
Has nothing to do with wolves.
I was trying to. I really wanted to talk about the head on the stick scene from the movie.
I've never seen it, so you're talking to a complete novice.
Well, you know what? I also have not seen it, but I know the story really well from the movie. So it's this horror movie that takes place in Australia. So it was written to be a horror movie that takes place in Australia, and it's based on a true story.
Okay.
For these, I think it's 3 people that go into the Northern Territory and spend some time at the Wolf Creek National Park there.
Okay.
So that's mine. Do you want me to go first? I'll just keep going.
Yeah, you go first. Yeah, sure.
Okay. Yeah. So, I'm sorry that this is kind of a boring story because I started it and I thought it was going to be great, and it is not.
Turns out it was just a movie.
Yeah, turns out. Okay, so this guy has a heart attack on the side of the road. No.
The end.
The end. These 3 people, so Stewart Highway, on the Stewart Highway, 2 people. I thought it was really crazy
you took notes as good as I did.
No, I thought it was crazy that it's just dawned on me that this is not a guy named Stewart Highway, but it takes place
2 guys on the
Stewart Highway. So one is Joanne Lees, and the other guy's name is Peter Falconio. So Peter Falconio is 28 years old. And they were driving through the Northern Territory, and their car broke down, and it wouldn't start. And this guy pulled over, and they accepted help from him. He was just like a local bushie, and he was really nice. And he said, "Oh, I'll tow your car to my camp." So he towed their car and they got into his car. Sort of like Russell Coit, but a little more murdery. So
I'm just going to mute you for 1 second. I got to take off my shirt and throw it in the laundry. 1 sec.
Okay.
Oh shit, that didn't work, did it?
Yeah, you didn't. Okay, so just you and me, listeners. He tows the car to his camp, and his camp is on an abandoned mine site. The group spend the night there, and then he turns out to be not such a friendly guy after all. His name was Bradley John Murdock. That morning, the next day, he was going to help them fix the car. He got Joanne to get in the driver's seat, and he took Peter to the front of the car, and he told Joanne to rev the engine so he could hear it.
Are you singing Hamilton now?
Sorry. Yeah. So he could hear it. Hear it. What do you fear it? So he told Joanne to rev the engine so he can hear it. And as she's revving it, she thinks that she can hear a gunshot. Then he comes back and ties her up and puts her into his car, and then leaves her for a really long time. And you know what, gang? I'm pretty sure that this all happened on the side of the Stewart Highway, not at his camp.
There was not a third man named Stewart Highway.
Yes. Feel free to leave any corrections in the comment section below, or
we
just
will do
send
a
us
corrections
an email
corner next week
at onefootintheGravepodcast@gmail.com, or onefootinthegravepodcast.weebly.com, and you can have access to all the things. So anyway, so he kills Peter and leaves this chick on the side of the highway,
tied up
in his car. Probably
in
not.
His car.
Maybe not on the highway. Definitely in his car. Maybe at the mine site camp. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Wolf Creek is involved.
Wolf. So he leaves her for a really long time, tied up in his car, and this is like the Northern Territory, outback Australia. I don't think that he would have left her in his car with the air conditioning on. Like, you can just die from exposure.
This kind of goes back to the child murder theory that we have, that people left in hot cars are really murder victims more than anything else, because they're
totally.
I mean, we all know better. You die in the car in about 2 hours in the heat.
Sidebar.
Yeah.
These kids are like making these inventions that you
turn on the air conditioning when the
yeah, no, it's like if you have a kid in the back of your car, then you tie something from your seatbelt to your door handle, so when you open your door, it's like an immediate reminder that you've got someone in the back and you need to get them out.
Yeah.
I've never had a situation where I've, even for a moment, even when they're so quiet, that I've forgotten that the kids are in the back seat.
No.
So are these people?
I am an expert at being fucking exhausted. There is nobody who's been more tired than I've been when I had a baby and I did an entire week of call in a row. And it never even crossed my mind that it would be possible to forget the baby in the back of the car.
Yeah.
And I'm not a fucking smart guy. I do stupid shit. I've left cars in drive and driven them into the back of a car wash. I stepped out of the car that was running and in drive.
But it never to people with low testosterone. It's a known side effect.
My ovaries are hurting. I'm sure most of these are intentional murder. Now, sometimes there's an overreaction, because sometimes people leave the kid in the car when they're taking their groceries in, and then the neighbor calls the police. And I think that's equally bullshit.
Okay, so you know what? That actually does maybe make sense, that people would leave. Like, if you were prioritizing getting the groceries in and letting the kids sleep in the back of the car, I could see how you could get distracted and then just forget that the kid's in the car, because you've just unloaded all the groceries, and then you're like, oh, I'm just going to sit down for a sec, and you start watching the Kardashians, and one thing leads to another, and you're on episode 27.
I'm sure there have been innocent times, but most of them, I would say, are not. I saw a funny thing where they said, it was on the news, and it said, now, in order, for child safety, whenever you get out of the car and you go into your house, check to make sure your most important valuables are with you every time. Check to make sure you have your phone. If you have your phone, think, do I have my baby? And I thought, your most important valuable is your fucking baby. It's not your goddamn phone. Fucking news.
Yeah. People are just so fucking stupid.
I am getting the new phone, by the way. New iPhone. On a lighter note. The XS, the 10S Max. I'm getting the big one. Because, fuck it, I haven't had one. I've got a 7-year-old phone now, and it's glitchy as shit, and it runs out of batteries real quick, and I just said, well, time for the new one. And I know I'm going to have it for another 5 or 6 years, so. Yeah, I've got the 6 Plus, yeah.
Yeah,
that's mine too.
I like it, but it is getting quite glitchy.
Yeah, I think they do it on purpose. It's like the kid in the car.
100%.
But
100% they do.
Whatever, I own some Apple stock, so hopefully
five,
everybody like me will help pay for my retirement.
Those 5 stocks are really going to pay for that.
Yeah, I only have a couple $1,000, and I still owe a lot more money than I have. But it makes me feel like I'm saving for my retirement, which will never happen.
Well, back to murder. So
Wolf Creek.
Joanne thought, as she was sitting in this car, that the guy was not going to come back because he was gone for hours. She finally managed to get free and staggered back out onto the highway, and 2 truckies stopped and helped her out. It turns out that during that time that she was by herself, he was actually disposing of Peter's body. So this is all her testimony or something.
No, I think I might have seen this movie now that you're telling me. Yeah.
So Murdock was eventually caught, and
any relation?
It turned out to be no.
You're related
I hope
to some
not.
Murdocks.
Yeah. It turned out to be the biggest Northern Territory police investigation ever. Rupert.
It doesn't seem
Murdock
like it would be that hard to find him because he left his car.
She was tied up in his car. That they couldn't find a weapon and they couldn't find Peter's body. So this was in 2001.
So it's like habeas corpus issues, not figuring out who the guy was, but proving.
And also the motive is completely unclear. Like, why did he want to kill these people? Because he had been in Alice Springs at the same time that they were there, and they ate at the same fast food place, but they don't know whether they were like targeted victims or whether it was just a random attack and these were just coincidental things. But they did find his DNA on the binds from Joanne's hands. So I think that evidence enough. Is what was enough to say that he was guilty at least of
Can you
whatever.
Remind me when this was?
This was in July 14th, 2001 is when the murder happened.
Oh, okay.
And then in December 2005, he was convicted with a unanimous verdict from the jury. And he has to serve at least 28 years of his life sentence. So the movie, had it been based on that, would have been super fucking boring. Like, one gunshot that no one saw because the hood was up on the car. And then just a guy comes back and gets caught. Like, she gets away and the guy gets caught, and that's the end. But what actually happened was that they also based some of the killings in the movie on a guy named Ivan Milat. He was a serial killer that was torturing and killing his victims, who happened to be hitchhikers that he would pick up. And he's also been caught and sentenced to life in prison. But the guy who wrote the movie just wanted to have this horror flick set in the Australian outback, and only found out about these murders coincidentally after filming. So they were able to say based on a true story because they've kind of combined some of these murders into one movie. And they happen to be at Wolf Creek. So that's why they managed to say based on a true story. But the thing that, like, the most...
Loosely, very loosely based.
Yeah, I think you must Google Head on a Stick, because I have Googled it and it's disgusting, where this girl's trying to get away at night and he's rode up on her with his car and he's got her in his headlights. And he takes out this big knife and he puts it into, like, her... like thoracic vertebrae, and severs her spinal cord, so she can still breathe and talk, but she can't move her arms or legs. So
but this didn't really happen. This was just in the movie.
Well, I don't know if that part's make believe, or maybe that's one of the Ivan Millet murders.
Okay.
Because he did torture his victims before killing them.
Right.
So, but in order to know more, I'd have to have done more research, which
not your style.
No. More of a wing it kind of guy.
That was pretty good.
Yeah,
it's
Wolf Creek, not it's fake news.
Fake news. I just I'm sitting outside, by the way, on the back deck.
What? No,
and,
I would never have believed.
You can hear the highway, can you?
Yes.
I just squished a stink bug that had landed. I'm sitting out in my fat naked body is out here with pants on because I got to run my shirt through the wash.
Why are you naked?
Well, just the top half is naked, but it's a bad sight. Anyway, I just squished a stink bug on my sweaty love handle.
Gross.
Yeah.
Like both visual and the stink bug.
Yep. It's been a humbling year.
So you're going to talk about some paranormal Anne of Green. Oh fuck! I need to. Okay, I'm going to do a few plugs because I found some really cool fucking shit on YouTube.
Okay.
So first one is Ask a Mortician. Have you heard of this?
No, but that sounds awesome.
Yeah. So Ask a Mortician. She goes through all the things that happen in a mortuary, but then she also does iconic corpses. So she talks about the last one was Lenin. Yeah. And then she all these weird things about embalming and stuff like that. And the other one is that carpetbagger, who I sent you that link to, and that was all the, what do you call them? The weird monsters.
Cryptids?
Yeah, he did a whole thing on cryptids, and there's a museum who is a paranormal museum, and it's all about the cryptids and all that sort of shit. So
it's going to sound funny for somebody who has read as much as I have. What is a carpetbagger?
No idea. A guy, chubby guy with mutton chops.
Okay.
And a bowler hat. That's the carpetbagger that I know.
Yeah. There's another YouTube channel that's really interesting to watch because it's so far out of the realm of stuff that I do, but it's this guy named Brave Dave, who's this he's an English guy who comes to the States and comes to Canada and stuff, and he basically train hops, which is still a thing, and they hide in grain cars and stuff and travel the country for free essentially. So he's like a hobo, but the amount of, I mean, obviously people do it because you see the graffiti tags on trains when they go by, right? But I never really thought about it. I would imagine
that would be when they're parked.
Well, it's also, those tags are from people who ride the rails, apparently. I'm learning from Brave Dave.
Does he play a harmonica?
He does not. He basically dresses like a ninja so that he doesn't get recognized. And there's still rail yard bulls who go looking for these people. That's a job, is to find people trying to train hop.
How much, honest to goodness, how much could it cost to just legally get on the train and just go wherever he's going?
Well, you see, you're looking at it from the perspective of a person who is willing to have a job.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah.
So I got this idea from Dixie Normus.
Carmen Dixie, yeah.
So thanks, Carmen. It's a good one because it's got Canadian tie-ins. It's got a Richard Ramirez tie-in. And
yeah.
So this is the death of Elisa Lam.
Elisa Lam.
Yeah. So in the background, Elisa was a student at UBC, University of British Columbia. She was from Burnaby, which is one of those little cities, sort of satellite cities outside Vancouver. And
so it's a Canadian story.
She's Canadian. Yeah. Right. She suffered from bipolar disorder, and I have a lot of friends with bipolar, and I think part of the issue that she had was she had a hard time concentrating at school and stuff. So she had to take a semester off. And when she took her semester off, she decided to travel, I guess. And she, she was nice, seemed to be a very nice girl. She had a fashion blog and, just kind of your normal Canadian
living her best life.
Yeah. Doing okay. But obviously having some mental health issues. And so she took a semester off. She went down to Los Angeles and took the Amtrak down. She went to San Diego and went to the zoo. And then January 26th, she arrived in Los Angeles. And 2 days later, she checked into the Cecil Hotel, which is it is a crummy hotel. and it is a famously crummy hotel that's down near Skid Row in downtown LA. And that is not Skid Row, the band, living in downtown LA. That is the place the band was named after. No, he was Poison. He was Poison. On Skinny Bop Bomb. That's a lot of us low T guys. On Skid Row. Yeah, exactly. So, brief background on the Cecil Hotel. It was built as a business hotel in the 1920s, and fell on hard times during the Great Depression. It sort of, as the downtown around it decayed, it became more of a hostel or a sort of last place for desperate people to live before you get to homelessness. You know what I mean? Yeah. Interestingly,
expensive hotel.
No, it was a cheap place. Elizabeth Short, from the Black Dahlia murder victim.
No,
it was her last known address.
You could live there?
Yeah, like people, when you watch cop movies and there's always one cop whose wife leaves him and he's like suicidal and he lives in a hotel. That's kind of what Cecil I picture. Hotel. That's the Cecil Hotel.
Yeah. Right.
There was a lady in 1964, Goldie Osgood, and they called her the Pigeon Lady of Pershing Square. She was raped and murdered in her room at the Cecil Hotel.
Oh, Jack, like in Mary Poppins?
Yeah.
Feed the birds?
Yep. While committing his murders, Richard Ramirez lived at the Cecil Hotel. So that's the Night Stalker from a couple episodes ago.
A happy place.
And do you know who Jack Unterweger is? No, Jack Unterweger or Unterweger. I don't know how you pronounce it. I'm not Austrian or German, but he was. Now I got to go on a little tangent here because this is a crazy story too. So he was an Austrian murderer, and the Austrians at the time, I think it was back in the 70s, he killed a sex worker. They were getting really into socialism, and rehabilitation was like the big thrust. So he went to prison and started writing books after killing the sex worker, books about rehabilitation, books about, life isn't over and I can still better myself and blah, blah, blah. So there was this huge socialist uprising and a big movement to get him out of prison. And he got out of prison, was a television host, became a news reporter, got transferred to Los Angeles, and was reporting on all these murders where women had been strangled with their own bras. Yeah. I'll give you a guess who the murderer was.
Ricky Ramirez?
No, it was Jack Unterweger, the reporter. So he was a serial killer, and all the, that big socialist, everybody deserves second chance, blah, 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 even sex worker murderers. Fuck off. It never works out. Your ideas never work out. Just give it up a little bit. I'm all for socialized medicine. End it there. You don't need to let people out of prison who killed serial killers. Yeah, they're not rehabilitated. So he killed a ton of people before he got caught. After his release, he got caught in the 90s, I think. So anyway, that was just another famous resident. So Elisa Lam is staying there. And she's taking her bipolar medicine, I believe. But she's on quite a few. She's on Wellbutrin, Lamictal, Seroquel, and Effexor. So Wellbutrin and Effexor are antidepressants. Lamictal and Seroquel, I think, are antipsychotics. Seroquel is definitely an antipsychotic, but a lot of people who aren't psychotic take it. And, there are different types of bipolar disorder. There is bipolar disorder with psychotic features, but I think it's pretty rare, right? So I would think Seroquel, like we've given it to a lot of people, A, for nausea, but B, for like as a tranquilizer, like a calming agent. So maybe if she's, manic or whatever.
And don't kill people.
Well, yeah, she's not a murderer. She's a victim in this story. But anyway, her family's had kept her mental illness a secret. And they say she had no history of suicidal ideations or suicide attempts, but you never really know with family. you know, if they're hiding one thing, maybe they're hiding more, but you're never sure. There was a report that she'd briefly gone missing before for a short period. So when she was traveling, she contacted her parents in BC every day. And they didn't hear from her on January 31st. That was the day she was supposed to check out of the Cecil Hotel and go to Santa Cruz. And when they didn't hear from her, they called the Los Angeles police. Basically, she had, at the Cecil, there are hostel type rooms and there are single rooms. And initially she'd been in one of the hostel rooms, but she'd had some odd behavior issues, and the hotel manager had moved her to a single room because the other people in the hostel were
Did she get a little bit hostile?
Anyway, yep. I can't bring myself to watch those movies, those like torture porn hostel movies. I don't know. I wouldn't enjoy that. No, but you were talking about Wolf Creek. This is a day of tangents. This is an entire podcast of tangents. Have you ever heard of a movie called Cannibal Holocaust? From the 70s? It was, people thought 100% for sure that it was a snuff film because the murder scenes in it and the torture scenes are so realistic. And it was like the original Eli Roth. I can't remember what the guy's name was. I think he's Italian, but I'm just going to guess Lamborghini. Probably. Yeah,
Francisco Lamborghini.
Francisco Lamborghini, his famous, obviously, film, Cannibal Holocaust. He basically, the film started getting banned, and he got arrested because that's how sure people were that the murder in it was real. And the scenes in it, I've seen some of the scenes. I can't watch the movie, but they actually do kill a sea turtle in the movie.
Oh, no.
And then the gore scenes, like, it's about explorers in the Amazon finding a tribe that are basically cannibals, and they like one of them, it shows the guy is naked and the cannibals, like, he's screaming and they cut his dick off, and it looks so real, and this is done in the 70s. I almost vomited when I saw it, and I couldn't watch the whole thing, but there's like scenes of people impaled on poles and stuff. So he in his trial, he had to produce the actors who everyone was sure he had murdered in the making of this snuff film, and it just turned out it was like extremely good special effects, except they did kill animals in the movie. But anyway, that's a side note. Just when you were talking about Wolf Creek and the head on a stick, I thought of the lady on a stick in Cannibal Holocaust.
Yeah, and the guy with no dick now.
Oh, it was. I mean, it is the stuff of nightmares, right? There are many reasons not to travel: diarrhea, cannibals.
Getting your dick cut off.
I tend to not go further south than Florida. Anything below, once you cross that border into Mexico, it seems like it's a. Now we have a lot of Mexican listeners. So sorry, we think you live in the Wild West, but we all we hear are bad stories. You never hear
really
the good news story out of
I'm
Mexico.
so sheltered and stupid because like people, like friends of mine, are traveling and they go to all these Asian countries, and in my head it is like Big Trouble in Little China.
Like you're gonna get in a fight with Kim Jong-un. There's gonna be
no, but like bamboo,
you need to know karate,
bamboo huts, and like just completely third worldy. And then I actually watch like real YouTube channels about travel,
and it is much better.
It is like a normal city, just like a normal place, and it blows my mind. And I
feel like our government wants to perpetuate the myth that the rest of the world is a shithole because they want you to think, you're paying your taxes for a reason. You live in such a great place, but we are like Canada's like a second world country compared to Singapore and Japan, and you know what I mean? Well, like, I'd love to go.
I'm sure that there are more extremes in terms of poverty.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm not talking about going to Malawi. I'm talking about going skiing in Sapporo and then having sushi after.
Yeah. Apparently, now I always thought that it was like super expensive to do that as well, but it's a lot cheaper than going skiing in Australia.
Well, that's because in Australia they have to make the snow out of styrofoam.
Well, and also like there's not that old radiation thing.
there's a little bit of Fukushima everywhere you go, but if you don't stay for too long.
Yeah. Like the winter there is a nuclear winter.
But great powder. It's mostly ash, but it's deep. Anyway, Japan has had it rough. I think that's what makes Godzilla so believable, because if he comes up anywhere...
a toothy patch.
They've hit a toothy patch. Sorry, Japan. We do have some Japanese listeners.
Konnichiwa.
What did you say last time? Ruh-roh. Is that from Wags the dog? From or is it just from like Team America?
It's just
Old Police.
What? Ruh-roh?
Ruh-roh.
Just like Aaron and I do it, so I don't know. It's probably some pop culture reference that we never got.
Yeah,
it's stuck.
Yeah, because it kind of sounds like you're making fun of an Asian accent, but at the same time, I'm pretty sure it's from Wags the dog from the Wiggles. Well, that's what he says. Ruh-roh.
Well, yeah, because we do it when, like, it started, I think, when we were talking about. Well, okay, so we're both vets, and we make the dogs talk in, like, we talk.
Like you talk in the dog voice in your. Yeah.
Yes. Like
you channel the dog's thoughts.
Where's my pancake? That fell on the ground. Ruh-roh, I'll eat it.
So, I heard there's a ruh-roh that Pete has cancer.
Yeah. The worst cancer I've ever seen.
Ruh-roh.
And then
sorry, Pete.
Today, one of our other animals has had a stay of execution as well, because the horse whose eye has been bad for the last 4 months, we had made the decision when we tried to do its teeth and all it had was gums,
and you pulled one out, one just fell out.
No, that's the other one.
Oh, that's the good horse. That's the healthy horse.
We've got a house full of aged animals.
Your horses have been into polonium.
So we're just going to take the eye out and hope for the best.
I don't know. I've never understood owning animals, because it's just like buying sorrow for 7 years from now. I loved my dog, but man, I grieved for my dog after the dog died, and he had a normal dog life. It wasn't like they don't live to be 70. Maybe when you get a 70-year-old animal.
It's people like you that will make me not have a job.
Well, people like you will keep you in work forever. Now, this is the One Foot in the Grave podcast, and one of the funniest fucking stories I've ever heard, which is horrendous, was the story of you killing and burying the horse in your yard with your children.
There. That was the fucking worst.
With the excavator. All right, everyone give Daddy Cool a hug. Blam.
Yeah. Oh, God. Man.
Poorly thought out.
I'm a small animal vet. I had not been exposed to this before. And my son, who was just 2 or 3, was so into trucks and diggers. And so Aaron...
So you thought, we've got the excavator.
Yeah, well, Aaron, who's had this horse for 20-odd years, is the horse vet. So she actually did the euthanizing, and he didn't fall into the pit. So then the excavator had to go and pick up the body, and I was holding Alice, and I was like, Alice, just look at me, just keep your eyes on me, don't look at that, just look. And Elijah was like, I want to watch the digger, and Aaron said, okay. So she let him watch, and it picked up this horse, and it's all limp, and it's falling off the big, what do you call it?
Ripped its guts
out.
Yeah.
And Elijah just goes, digger, no.
I don't like diggers anymore.
Yeah, he didn't. And we are doing stuff, and he's like, the digger's not going to come and put me in the hole, is it?
Fucking hell.
Yeah. And I say, if you don't go to sleep, it will.
It's the worst. That's the worst fucking thing I've ever heard of. Anyway, it's so funny because it's so bad.
It was so bad.
Sometimes as parents, we make right decisions, and sometimes we make wrong decisions.
I think I made the right decision with Alice, and then big old whoopsie daisies for Aaron.
I still think the right decision would have been, the kids are at school, kill the horse, put it in the ground, cover it up, and when they say, where's Daddy Cool, say, oh, when horses get to a certain age, they run off with other horses.
To rainbows.
Yeah.
That's how rainbows are made.
His wings came in and he flew off. It was beautiful. If you look up in the clouds sometimes, you'll see Daddy Cool. He'll fly over the house. It's like the International Space Station.
It would be like me thinking that because Aunt Gwen told me that if I pick my nose, I'll get AIDS, that I was for sure going to have AIDS. And I was scared to give blood because I was like, well, I picked my nose that one time 10 years ago. And I'm pretty sure I've now got AIDS.
When Mom was a kid, obviously some girl got pregnant in high school or whatever, and her grandmother told her that the girl had swallowed a watermelon seed and the watermelon had taken root and she was growing a watermelon plant in her belly, to avoid talking about, intercourse. And Mom believed that, and then she told me that, I think just as a mean joke when I was little, and I believed it, and I always was fanatical about spitting out watermelon seeds. I had these nightmares of the roots like poking through my skin.
Yeah, well, that chick had a root, all right.
That's horrible. She could have been a victim of some kind of assault. I don't know the story. Anyway.
All right, so tell me more about Elisa.
Yeah, Elisa Lam. So,
Elisa Lam.
Yeah, Elisa was Liza Minnelli. So anyway, she was staying in this famous hotel, is basically how it starts. And she didn't call her parents, and the parents called the police on January 31st. And there was a video of her. They started looking for her. There's a video of her acting very strange in the elevator. It looks like the elevator's not working. She's moving her hands around a lot, and she's not. It almost looks like...
What's her name again?
Elisa Lam. L-A-M.
Elisa Lam. I'm doodling this. Doodling.
Google the.
Google.
So when she's acting so strange, it's theorized that maybe she was talking to someone in the hallway. Maybe she had a psychotic break, but I don't know. I've seen psychotic people, and I'm not really sure I buy it. I think there might have actually been somebody there. Of course, the paranormal theory is that it was the ghost of our famous Satanist, Richard Ramirez, but I think that's...
Well, what year did it happen?
This was in 2013.
Oh, right. So quite recent.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. This isn't an old. Just briefly, she's hiding in the elevator. She's trying to press the button to go downstairs. She keeps looking out into the hallway to see if this person's following her. Then she kind of steps out, and it's like she's arguing with somebody. And it's the last video of her. And the police have released the video, but it was pixelized over her mouth, so you can't read her lips, what she's saying.
Oh, yeah. Why isn't the elevator door closing?
Well, exactly. So there was maybe an elevator malfunction. Nobody's 100% sure. Her movements are very exaggerated. Yeah. She's rubbing her arms together. She's like waving her hands really dramatically.
Can you tell Mom that I'm still talking to you? She just tried to FaceTime me. Yeah.
Mom, Dan's still on the phone with me. I can't hear. Anyway, whatever, Mom. So, time passes. Time marches on.
He's not breathing.
The guests at the hotel, they haven't found the body. Oh, just one second. I'm going to make sure that he's breathing. Just 1 second. I would think she would come out. Mom, is everything okay? Oh. This is abuse. She says this is abuse because I'm visiting them, but only talking to you. But it's our podcast, man. It's 400 listeners.
Priorities.
We don't really care.
I know. She doesn't care.
And neither do any of the listeners.
Yeah. No. We're not editing this out. We don't edit anymore.
No.
There is some confusion because some podcasts seem to be very smooth when you listen to them.
Yeah.
They have something called editing that we are unwilling to put the work into to do.
Yeah.
I wish I'd been able to record you singing Hamilton at the beginning of this one. It was fucking hilarious.
Jeez.
It wasn't even too pitchy. It was quite good. So this lady's missing, and she's missing for like 2 weeks. The guests at the hotel, some of them are getting really pissed because all of a sudden the water pressure goes way down in the hotel. And then some of them are saying the water's turning black. There's shit coming out of our water. When we brush our teeth, it tastes terrible, you know, and these are people paying for the cheapest hotel, so they're drinking the tap water and stuff.
Yeah.
Finally, they go up to investigate the water system. Like, I feel bad for the hotel manager because he's like, fuck, what next? We got missing people. The fucking water's screwed up. They go up. They go through all the pipes. They go up to the roof of the hotel, and they start inspecting the water tank. There's nothing on the outside. There's no rupture or anything. They go inside the water tank. Her body is floating naked in the water tank with her clothes also floating next to the body. And so she's been in there for probably, 19 days.
People had been drinking
her
putrefying body.
Yeah. And showering in it.
Oh, Lord, I forgot about that.
Yeah. Yeah. So, in a way, she remains with many of us. Oh, oh God. I'm just talking about Cannibal Holocaust. The accidental cannibal. That would be what I would call if I wrote a book about this story, that's what it would be called. Accidental cannibals. Anyway, so to get to the roof of the hotel, she could have either gone out the window of a room and found a fire escape and climbed up, or there's a door at the top of the stairwell that goes out, but it sets off an alarm, and the alarm never went off. So nobody's sure how she got up there. Her drowning was her cause of death was officially called an accidental drowning. Her body, when they found her, was coated with a sand-like particulate, but I don't think I never found anything to suggest what that was. There was no evidence
if it was like a concrete water container, then maybe she was scratching to get out or something.
It could have been, but it was her whole body. It wasn't just her hands, and she didn't have missing fingernails or anything. To get in, there's a 20-pound lid on the thing and a hatch that you have to open, and then you have to close it you can't. It was not, I think it was. I don't know if it was locked when they found it. I guess that's the key question. Was she locked inside from the outside, or could she close the hatch from the inside? Yeah. Or did they find it with the hatch unlocked? I wish I had that information, because that seems like it would be was this murder versus accidental drowning versus suicide, whatever. They described the body as moderately decomposed, bloated, greenish, with marbling evident on the abdomen and skin separation evident, which is what happens when you have a body in the water for a long time. No evidence of physical trauma, sexual assault, no evidence of suicide. And initially they thought, she must have been on drugs because her behavior was so odd. But toxicology tests were consistent with the prescription medication she was taking, but the only other drugs they found were Sinutab and ibuprofen. Right. She had very small quantity of alcohol in her system, but very little. So I guess, the theories are, well, if she was talking to somebody outside the elevator and she was hiding from a real person, then potentially she went out the window. I don't know why you would go up instead of down on the fire escape if you're trying to hide from somebody, but she might have gone up. Maybe she thought this person was coming up behind her and couldn't find a hiding place on the roof, climbed up the water tower, opened the hatch, climbed in, and then, there's nothing on the inside, no way to get out, and just died. Or fell and maybe drowned, maybe she couldn't swim. Similarly, if she was hallucinating, I guess the same thing could happen, only the person she's hiding from is in her imagination. Yeah. Again, bipolar disorder versus schizophrenia. I've done psychiatry as part of my training. The most psychotic person I ever met was convinced that the Irving family was out to get him. And he'd hear voices, but he never like I think it's pretty rare to have visual hallucinations with anything other than, Lewy body dementia, which she was too young to have, or drugs, drug induced, like drug withdrawal or whatever. So those are I think the two main theories is that either she thought she was being chased or she was being followed by somebody. The third possibility is that maybe somebody murdered her and threw her body in there.
Just chucked her in there.
And it's a great way to get away with murder because the body decomposes in the water and the evidence is just going to be shit, right? And nobody's going to find her for quite a while. So maybe. And then there's, of course, the stupid Richard Ramirez's ghost was chasing her theory, but that's fucking ridiculous.
Which is obviously the most likely.
That's probably what happened.
Yeah.
I would say 95% sure it was Richard Ramirez's ghost.
Yeah.
5% chance of murder, suicide, or accidental drowning.
Yeah. So,
well, that's
pretty much case closed.
Case closed.
Yeah.
I'm gonna just quickly see if you have a minute. I'd love to get Dad's Pugwash murder on file here.
Wait, I can't.
His hometown. Are we out of time?
No, my internet is, though. It stopped. You're talking in wingdings a lot, so I can't actually hear you. Yeah. But, can we do it tomorrow morning? Here,
yeah. Well,
Thanks
let's
for
do a
listening.
mini-sode.
Okay. And then I'll put it up midweek, and then we'll try to do this. Oh, hold on. Okay. Bye.
See ya. Fucked up ending.
This is the
still recording
podcast. Find all the things are in the comment section below. Find us onefootinthegrave.weebly.com.